Hey guys, it's Segef with Frontlinetactic, and today I'm going to go over some of the hotfix patch notes for 0.6.1.37 and some change. In the background, you'll see me just casually fishing. The server that I play on is currently having a fishing competition, so I'm trying to get back up and fish so I can have the biggest fish and win a contest. But onto the patch notes. We'll put a link in the bottom in the section below that will kind of go over everything. But they wanted to start off with going over some of the details that they already talked about, but they didn't fully talk about in the patch notes with the full 0.6 patch release that happened last week. Some of it has to do with some UI cleanup and just making it more streamlined. Most of that has to do with the character creation. They did mention last week about the stats. One of the other things that some of you guys may or may not have noticed is that in the past week, our backpacks change shape based off of how full they are. So this is kind of a scary way for, if you play on a PvP server, for someone to be able to scope you out and see if you got any of that fat loots or not. Wells are currently an issue. I don't know about some of you guys are playing on what server you're playing or whatnot, but currently right now player made wells are broken and are currently not filling up with water. I believe I saw them post either on Reddit or on Twitter talking about how they were going to continue trying to fix that. But currently, this is the rule set of how wells are going to work, that they're going to be proximity based. If when you walk up to them, there's going to be a dice roll, and that dice roll is going to determine how full that well is going to be when you take a sip off of it, or not be able to take a sip on it. So it may just say to check. Once you leave a proximity, now they were kind of vague about what that proximity was, but that proximity was going to prevent you from being able to basically come and go too often, because there's also going to be a timer connected to that proximity. So you just can't like run, like say it's 100 feet, you can't just run away 100 feet, 101 feet, and then come back and get a new dice roll on how much water there is there and just like capitalize on forcing it to spawn water. So there's going to be a timer, and every time you break that mystery distance, it's going to reset that timer. So if the water is going to refill every 5 minutes, you leave 101 feet away, try to come back at 4 minutes and 35 seconds, it'll reset that timer right back to 5 minutes, so to speak. Again, they've been very vague with the timer and with the distance. So just be mindful if you're coming and going from the same area for a tight enough time limit that you may not be able to be getting more water or the well to refill. They also kind of noted and touched on the new textures for the forest. Uh, I think it's beautiful. It's amazing. There is basically some confusion on nutrition and water consumption that this patch hotfix he goes and touches on. Some of it has to do, I've been communicating with people on Reddit about this quite often, and hopefully there's been some help. Hopefully there's not. I'm still kind of testing out some of the how water works and the consumption. If you're not using it, then you will end up having to void it out. So don't over drink. That's one of the other things. One of the biggest things that I've noticed, and I've also coached other people on Reddit, is try to keep your food consumption, your calorie consumption, and your water consumption somewhere between 45% and 60%. I have noticed that at 45% about, that's when you'll get the prompt saying that I am hungry or I am thirsty. So if you kind of keep that window, you're able to keep yourself at a decent level and balance. I know some people on Reddit I was in a conversation with were talking about, hey, no, you can eat 100% of your capacity. Why don't you just do that? My counter argument is that it doesn't allow you to properly have leeway or wiggle room to manage your macros and your micros. You're just consuming calories, and this is going to go into fat reserves, and that's going to lower your dex stat. So if all of a sudden you are eating a ton of food, but you're not been eating a healthy, balanced diet, say your vitamin E or vitamin K is going down, and you start eating food to get that balance back up, then that's going to cause an issue. I still haven't played around too much. I am curious to see if vitamin K is going to have an impact on how fast you recover. Vitamin K is used in as a clotting factor in your blood. So I am curious that if you do get a stage 2, 3, or 4 injury and you're bleeding out, that if you have a deficiency in vitamin K, if that bleed out will either cause a rapid uh, blood loss and HP loss, or it would just take longer for it to stop. So I haven't played around with it yet. I'm really curious to how in depth some of this system is going to be. There is a plethora of bug fixes. Some of them are didn't notice. Others I'm like, oh, that's just a silly, very specific bug fix. Like I said, I will put a link in the section below so you can go through all the bug fixes. I'm not going to go over them all here in this section because some of them, like I said, are kind of boring or you didn't notice because they were so specific. Quality of life additions. If you had a crossbow, I haven't met any player that's been running around with a crossbow, but apparently there's going to be an interaction with the bolt that allows you to knock it. Visual effects for conditions will now fade in and fade out more smoothly. I did notice this with the sweating, and it looks very nice. Almost natural, like it kind of ghosts in, ghosts out. It's very nice. I like it, actually. It was a nice touch. You are no longer able to jump if you have no stamina. Apparently, there was a bug that if you bottomed out your stamina, you were still able to bounce around and jump. Added bomb diffusal minigame mouse sensitivity settings in the option. This is very nice for people like me that don't like a ton of mouse sensitivity in my first-person shooters, but in other style of games like RTS or other puzzle games, I like the mouse sensitivity turned up. So this allows you to have a differential between the two because that mini game is stressful and you need to be fast. Puppets can now inflict C2 wounds if they hit you repetitively in the same location. So this is kind of nice because I've been mauled a couple times before this hot patch happened, and it's like, oh, I just walked away with bruises. I'm on the mend really fast. Now, being hit repeatedly in the same location, this is going to represent more like clawing and scratching and biting, and so there is going to be an escalation of wounds when you're hit in the same location versus, oh, everything's fine. Treatment UI is now grayed out when in the process of treating wounds. Reduce an explosion damage on BB elements. Not quite sure what that is, or I haven't really engaged with it. And then modified explosive arrow damage range. Another thing that they added was something for those that play on private servers. That there is now a command to change the metabolism rate for those that play on accelerated time servers. Because what was happening, I guess, for some individuals is the time was traveling so fast that the metabolism was synced with the day and night cycle. And so you had individuals that were starving to death or dehydrating at rapid rates because they couldn't consume food or drink at the speed that the day and night cycle was going on. I've heard that there are some private servers that run this accelerated time so that night isn't as long. Because the day-night cycle is about 4 hours of daytime, 2 hours of nighttime. So if it's accelerated, you don't have as much dark time. Which nighttime doesn't really bother me, but on the server that I play on, there are some individuals that really kind of don't like the nighttime. Like I said, it doesn't bother me. Kill logs are now going to record everything properly. Admin drones will now see motorbike owners when hovering over them. Apparently, on some servers, when you jumped on a motorcycle, admins couldn't tell who was on the motorcycle. And open inventory on vehicles with drones should now work all over the vehicle. So those are pretty much the server settings, quality of life changes, and just a quick little rundown on some of the stuff that's happening. If you guys like me doing these updates, this is very reminiscent of when I used to play Kenshi on a regular basis, that whenever there was an update, I would do a quick little shout out and also add my input onto it. Oh, one last thing that I thought was really cool was that they did tweet saying that they were going to add rain catchers into the game for those individuals that either don't have the engineering to be able to build a well or have access or near a village well that you could then set up and jerry rig what looks like 3 or 4 jerry cans with a tarp that will then funnel in the water, and then you'll fill up the canisters. It's going to be really interesting. I'm curious how big this is going to take, how big the space it's going to take, or if it's a standing fixture that you can't pick it up and carry it. Because that would be interesting if you're able to like pack it up, put it into your car, drive part of the island. You're like, oh no, it's raining. Let me set it up, and I'll scope out the area while I collect rain or sit in my car. But yeah, that's pretty much it for right now, guys. Like I said, if you like these updates, please like, subscribe, post in the comments. Also, tell me what other kind of scum content and tips or tricks that you're looking for. As I said, I'm still kind of feeling out the metabolism system, and I'm trying to push the limits to see what does and doesn't affect. All right, guys, stay safe on the front line.